when, like you said, the school is destroyed, we don't know what condition it's in, but as the public educators, we have the responsibility of educating every child, period. So that's the struggle I have with that part of it. And I was very interested in community schools. Do you have any community schools? Because I think some of the apprehension that the community has as it relates to charters is that they see these as schools that are going to come into our community, that are going to be nice, shiny pennies that our children can look at and not experience. In some of the schools I saw in Atlanta, the school would sit right there in the middle of the inner city, and less than 10% of those kids live in the surrounding area. So it's a great opportunity, but who's going? How do you as the public school person affect that or control that piece of it so that you make sure that you continue to?
So your concerns that if
you say that we get, because they made David or getting back to answer question 2 here and then the last one.
I'm from New Jersey, and we've had the Christie model with the introduction, I'll use that word, introduction of charter schools. When you look at the salaries of the people who are running, they're the highest across the country. $400,000 for a person who's running charter schools. One superintendent in our schools have as much as Newark has something in the order of 40,000. I can't even guess how many people. They're not making that kind of money. So the money is not necessarily going to the child. It's going to the board or to the superintendents of those school districts who are not accountable directly to the community. So my concern is, how do you monitor those types of things? And I really would like to have seen the data, the actual data on the populations. Because what's been a challenge to us in our state is the populations are not the same. And as she mentioned, the parents think that, oh, you're getting a brand new school, a smaller and safer learning community, and they all want to go there. Those are the parents who are the most engaged. So that population naturally shifts, and then the public schools are left with the less engaged parents, and of course, the less who have challenged students as well, because they're not as engaged. So it changes the outcomes, and it creates a problem for us.
So the question about community schools, or where the money is going, getting to the student in the classroom, and then the last question.
Mine's as much a statement as a question, and that is one of the problems we have here is we're all talking about fruit, right? We're all talking about charter schools, but a charter school in Indianapolis obviously means something completely different than it does in Ohio, completely different than it does in New Orleans, and the laws and the regulations are so vastly different. At Baltimore, the first cube I ever went to was in Baltimore, and they embraced their charters, and I was blown away by that as someone from Ohio, where they are honestly a boil on education in Ohio. They are just a terrible blight for our schools, and so many of them are failing, and they close within 3 years. So I think it's so hard to have a conversation. I think that's why people have dwindled away, is because the laws are so different, and it's so frustrating to all of us.
This is what the power of school board members, like, you have the power to demand radical financial transparency in your district. You can push your CFO and your superintendent to say, I want to know where all the dollars go, and then you push that same transparency with charters. I mean, we're doing it for our schools.
We have no local control, zero of any of our charters.
What about your own system?
Sure. We can do that with
do you know how much money goes to every one of your schools on a per? It's really important because
off the top of my head, no.
No, I didn't mean that. No, I meant that like I didn't mean like actual money. What I'm saying is, you need to go through the exercise equity-wise, because what you will tend to see is the schools with the senior teachers pull the most money and resources, and they're not the schools that have the kids who should be getting those resources. So until you're going to break that.
But my legislative problem is my problem. So it's like the Cleveland plan in Ohio is a completely separate plan. It sounds a lot like what you guys have with your innovation plan. But if you're somewhere else, it's not going to be the same. And I hear that same frustration everywhere, because we can't do what you guys are doing.
I'm sorry, I'm a hopeless optimist. You got to think about what you can do, because if everybody gets stuck on what they can't do, then they don't move forward. So you have power and control on your boards to make sure that you are being equitable in your schools. And then when you're fixing that, it highlights the inequities other places.
And so also, Marianne also has I mentioned earlier in her bio, she's also a former state legislator, right? And so she's able to marry both at the state and at the local level. So please get her information before we leave, so you can get an understanding and have a conversation with her about the process and how they're doing it in Indianapolis. You want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to these three questions a little bit. First of all, you're absolutely right. Chartering is different everywhere. And there are states who've blown it. They have a lousy charter law and lousy charter practices. And Ohio is the leader of that parade. And Michigan is another one, okay? But there are other places that have much stronger charter laws. And the lady who made the comment and then left said that the data says that charters aren't better. Well, that's just flat out wrong. There have been dozens and dozens of studies, and nationally, on average, with the same kids, charters perform much better with less money. And it's dramatic in urban areas. In urban areas, the last study by the most credible organization said that charter kids in urban areas learn 50% more every year by their 4th year in a charter than the kids in the district. So that's my first point.
Well, that's not a point, because I can't accept that. I think it depends.
That's a fact, though.
And I'm from an urban area in Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah, Missouri's another one that has a terrible charter law.
But, to make a blanket statement like that, there are dozens of charter schools in that area that are not performing.
Let me explain where it came from.
Okay.
Stanford University has a research institution, name is Credo, has something to do with educational outcomes. Anyway, when they released their first study in 2009, the teachers' unions loved them. Now they're not so happy, because they're showing that their study in 2015 showed that in 41 urban areas around the country, and Kansas City, I agree, lousy charters, terrible charter law in Missouri.
Not all of them.
Not all of them, no, but too many. Too many. So I agree with you. Kansas City is not one I would hold up, but 41 regions, kids learning 50% more than the district kids. Now, having said that, we're not here to talk about charters. We're talking about a district that said, you know what, we're losing to charters. They've taken away 35% of our kids, and we're in desperate shape. What can we do? Let's create innovation schools. Let's learn from what works in chartering, and let's avoid the mistakes that we've seen in chartering, and let's create district schools where the principals and the teachers are empowered to do what's best for the kids, and they're all accountable for their performance, and the schools can be different. They don't all have to be cookie-cutter schools. We can have different kinds of schools, because kids are different, and kids need something different. But these are district schools we're talking about.
Thank you. So I'm going to give first on privilege to my vice chair of my school. Yes. if I don't, nothing I want to. But Carolyn Lawson from Prince George's County has the last word.
And I know I came in this session late, but the conversation I've heard since I've been in here around charters, and I must say, and I don't know if Mr. Valentine shared this with you, but in Prince George's County, state of Maryland, most of them, we have charter schools, but our charter schools are, the public school system holds the charter to our charter schools. So we are able to make sure that these charter schools are performing the way they're supposed to be performing. We also learn from some of the ways that they do to help our public schools. So I think in the way we're doing it in our particular county, it's really working. I think we've had some very successful charter schools in our areas, and we've had some that were not successful, but because we hold the charter, we can evaluate them, we can shut them down if they're not performing the way they're supposed to perform. So I think when we're doing it that way, I think I've heard a lot of conversation about charter schools. I believe that the way that we handle charter schools in the state of Maryland, I think it's a good formula in how you handle charter schools. So that's just what I wanted to say, that we have some very successful charter schools in Prince George's County. And I believe that the model can work if we work together as a partnership with the school system.
Thank you so much. Everyone clap it up for yourselves for sticking around, please. Before you go, one last thing. I want to leave on a high note. Edwin, hand your phone out. Last time. And so we're gonna do a closing out survey.